Blake, do you remember where you were on 9/11?
Dude, second grade Blake was real confused.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who still remembers watching people jump out of a tower, and I'm here with my co-host who has had a fear of flying originate from that very moment himself, Toby Walters.
I wish I could find that moment in time where I became terrified of flying, because it was actually very close to the year 2001. It was not because of 9/11. Like, I wasn't in the air. I didn't have any correlation with that. But I think it was early marriage, like 2003, 2004.
I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
To get afraid of flying over that.
I mean, it would absolutely make perfect sense. So I remember I woke up and I still living at home. I was in college, and I came out of my bedroom and I saw my mom watching TV, and I saw the smoke coming out of one of the towers. And then she kind of told me what was happening.
You were home?
Yeah, I remember West Coast. So 2 hours earlier than where you are, because I was in San Diego. So it happened at like 6 a.m. Pacific time.
In my head, that was like in the middle of the school day, but I guess maybe it wasn't. I just remember people were dropping like flies in my class, getting called out, and I was like, what is going on?
Oh, really?
And then I got called out, and I was like, all right, I guess
like
I'm going.
Parents coming to collect their kids?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You had a literal attack on the country.
Yep.
Everyone's kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it on TV, and I told my mom, this is the most ignorant thing I've ever said, which is quite a stretch for me. Mm-hmm. I said, why aren't they using a blanket to just parachute down? Like in my head, that would have worked.
Uh-huh.
Glad I didn't have to try that, because it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. I won't even try and find, correlations to... Yeah, it was a moment in time when we could leave it there.
That's what happens when a second grader watches a terrorist attack. Like, your brain can't comprehend it.
No, totally.
This is my point there.
I mean,
like,
even in college, I couldn't really comprehend it. And I was on the other side of the U.S., so it didn't... Like, it was far from home. So
how dare you, Toby? The home is the America of the United States that was being attacked.
Exactly. All right. And so I was thinking of like key moments in history that I remember where I was. And so this was before you were born, but Space Shuttle Challenger blowing up. Did you learn about that in school? Do you remember that?
Well, similar to my story, apparently a lot of kids watch that at school.
Yeah. And I might have been, but... Yeah, I was in probably second grade. So similar, 9/11 for you. Yeah.
That's freaky.
Yeah.
I still remember reading the first article about COVID that sounded like, because it was like a couple of weeks where it was just this thing in China. And then I read a Vox article that was like, this is coming to America and this is how it's going to impact the country. And I remember being like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And what I always point to as the beginning of COVID in my mind was, do you remember who Rudy Gobert is? He's still an NBA player.
I don't. I'm an NFL guy, Toby.
He got COVID, and then in a press conference, he was joking that it was no big deal, and he was coughing on the microphones. And then that night, they canceled that NBA game that he was going to play in. And that, I think for a lot of people would say, like, that was the moment where, like, oh, we're like canceling major sporting events. That was the first one. So that was what I remember from that moment.
Yeah, I still remember in March of that year, my mother-in-law being like, Halloween's not going to happen this year. This was March. And I was like,
yeah,
Halloween's going to be fine. It was not fine.
Yeah.
And then I packed all my stuff up for my office when they, was it March 4th when they closed everything down?
I remember March 14th because that was my wife's birthday. We went out to dinner to celebrate, and we were like, we might not have been able to do this tomorrow.
Yeah, and so I took all my stuff home, and I never returned to that office because a couple months later, you stole me from them.
Yeah, it was also the time the Church Gear started. That's what I really remember. Yeah. And Blake, do you remember where you were when you heard about Charlie Kirk's assassination?
I was in this very room that we are recording in right now. We were about to go down into downtown Franklin to make a joking video with some some street signs.
Oh, yeah.
And I come into the room, and our content manager is crying because she has connections to Charlie Kirk. Like, she was familiar with him, and I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And she's like, he's been shot. And I'm like, it's just kind of wild.
I know. I was visiting churches in Oklahoma City, and I don't know what time of day it happened, but we were not it wasn't until I got out of a church and called my wife, and she said, did you hear about Charlie Kirk? And that's when I heard about it, but it had happened, me and the church didn't know because we were just hanging out, doing a behind-the-scenes tour. But it happened sometime when I was visiting some church in Oklahoma City.
It's just like anytime someone gets shot very publicly, you're always going to remember that. I mean, I still remember being in the Mexican restaurant when Trump's ear got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I mean, those are the moments where time kind of slows down because you're like.
And I'm sure like everybody of our parents' generation remembers when they learned about JFK being assassinated.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. These are the moments where, obviously, this is a more somber intro to the Church Gear podcast, but, sometimes you just kind of have to take it all in.
Yep. Lean into the real things that happen.
The realities of life.
Yes.
And so to guide us through the realities of life is the CEO and producer of Mosaic Events and the true life inspiration of Benjamin Button in the way that time doesn't affect him. He's been aging backwards. Brad McCraw. Brad, welcome to the pod.
Hey, guys. Hey, man. Thanks for having me back, man. It's exciting.
Yeah. I
feel like I was in that intro. This is either a church podcast or a conspiracy theory podcast based off the topics we've already got into in that intro, which, I mean, I'm game for either one of those. So whichever direction we want to go, I'm totally down.
I mean, we do have the conspiracy of how you appear to be aging backwards. And
I appreciate that too. Yeah.
Totally take this back to your wife today and be like, babe, I've learned that I'm just looking younger and younger every day. And then see how, like, if her eyes literally roll out of her head.
His hair has gotten darker. His skin has gotten more tanned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but that can all be done by, professionals.
Well, great. I'm going to make an appointment for that immediately after this.
More conspiracies. It's all AI.
Well, Brad, we're going to get into this topic of Charlie Kirk's memorial. Can you give us a quick snapshot again of your background? And then how did you actually cross paths with Charlie and Turning Point that led to, you being called in?
Yeah. So background, full production, both secular and ministry. I worked in secular production as an event producer prior to my stint in ministry for 9 years. It'll be 10 years ago now that I left full-time ministry, big church out here in Phoenix, CCV. I think it's now the third largest church in America. I was on staff there for 9 years, left that staff, started Mosaic Pro Events. It'll be 10 years February, which is pretty exciting to look at. And went back into corporate production, but we do a lot of nonprofit ministry, Christian, you name it, worship. That's kind of my focus and where I want to drive everything is to, kind of take that ministry background, secular background, and really mix and mingle those two and really use my passion for the church, for ministry, for the gospel, and produce events inside of, both environments. So we've kind of landed in a good spot for that. Turning Point USA has been one of our major clients for 6 years now. An amazing client. Charlie Kirk was amazing to work with. We met him by happenstance. It was through another worship leader, and they had another production company. They ended up firing that other production company. I was at the right place at the right time. Jumped on board with them, and it's kind of been through the roof since then. I mean, they've grown. That was 2019. And you can see their growth since 2019 and where they were and kind of the small events we were producing on their behalf to where we are now, where we're producing their normal events are upwards of, 10 to 15,000 people at a time, big arena events, big convention center events. And then obviously because of the tragedy that happened with his assassination, we were called in because they trusted us fully to produce his memorial. So we were called in to produce the memorial that happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Where were you when you heard the news?
I was at our office. So our office, I'm inside our office right now. We've got a little podcast studio in our office. Our whole staff was here. Thankfully, we had our social media director. He was here with us. He was actually in another room. We were at our conference table, which is outside of this space, just kind of doing our normal staff meeting. Jeff, who does our social media, came in and he's like, hey, I just saw on Twitter that Charlie's been shot. Obviously, we're like, oh, is that real? We knew that he was on tour, so we support their tours. He does an outside, if you see the tours that Charlie was doing, and they're still continuing to do it, the outside event that what you see on TikTok or social media that he's interacting with all the kids from the college happens during the day. And then at night, he would go into an auditorium, gymnasium at the college, and he would do a night event, which is more traditional, where he's kind of talking to the crowd. He's interviewing other influencers. So we cover all their night events. So we've got a crew out right now on that tour. We were not at that one. We didn't have any Mosaic staff at that one. That was tour stop number 1. We were going to join on tour stop number 2. So yeah, that's kind of where we were. We were all sitting out here, and you hear rumors all the time, or conspiracies like I talked about. So we're like, oh, that can't be true, or if it is true, something happened at the event. So of course we have a big TV in there. I pulled up Fox News instantly, and yeah, it was obviously all over the news, and it just spiraled kind of out of control from that point, where we had that moment where we all kind of gathered and prayed that maybe this wasn't real, or we're praying for a miracle. And then obviously not too much longer, we got the news that he had passed, which was obviously devastating for our whole staff and team around us that had been working hand in hand with Charlie for, like I said, 6 straight years. And we do upwards of 10 to 15, if you don't include the tours, which are 10 to 15 events by themselves. Outside of the tours, we usually do about 10 to 15 events with Charlie and his team a year. So we were in deep with him and his team, and we had a great relationship with him, great relationship with his wife, his widow now, Erica, their kids. So he's part of the family. We're part of their family. So it hit us hard for sure.
Yeah. And we, most of us never think about like a very public person with a very large following and a very large anti-following, let's say, that there was likely security that he traveled around with. What was that like for him? I'm sure it's not, Secret Service level, but what was the typical protection like?
It really was. At most events, it gets to that Secret Service level, and most of the events have Secret Service because there's, some kind of dignitary there. It's a very political side of things. And security is always tight. His security team that was there on site with him that day is the same security team that's at all the events. Amazing individuals. They do an amazing job. We know them all. Again, we're family with all of those guys as well. It's just, man, it's awful. It's devastating for his family. It's devastating for the security guys that have been with him for so long to obviously have that tragedy on their watch. I mean, there's no good way to put it. I mean, it was devastating to a lot of people for sure.
How long was it between, that day and then when did you get a call? Did the conversation start about, we want to do a memorial and want to bring you in?
Yeah, it was probably, it wasn't instantly. It was probably, I would say, I'd have to look at a calendar to get the actual dates, but it was probably, 4 or 5 days later, maybe 7 days later, they started talking about, hey, we need to do something properly for him. We actually, the original plan, which going back to conspiracies, it's kind of comical at this point how many conspiracies there are about making this happen in this short a time as we did.
Brad, I saw these. I've been waiting to talk to you about this. Yes,
I posted on my personal Instagram. I was taking screenshots on Twitter. One guy just became just a giant cheerleader for me. Like, he was arguing with other people on Twitter. Like, one of my funniest ones was like, this is Oscar-worthy production. Like, this guy, there's no way they pulled this off in 11. And he keeps saying 10 days. So I'm screenshotting it. Technically, it was 7 days. So we got the call a week and a half prior, about 10 days prior, 11 days prior. We were going to go into an arena here in Phoenix. Turning Point USA is based out of Phoenix, same place I'm based out of. There's a big arena, hockey arena, that we had done other events for Turning Point, where Trump got the nomination from RFK, and you see the sparks behind him. That was us at this other arena. Holds about 15 to 16,000. We had done events in there many, many times, both with Turning Point and other clients. We knew the venue really well. We were super excited. Okay, this is a venue we know, even though it's a short time frame. We've got 8 days, maybe 9 days at that point. But we know this arena well. Let's try to use what we've already done, lighting plots, audio plots. Let's go into this arena and really do it well. Great. The Friday before, so this is now essentially, it was the following Sunday. So what's that, 9 days, 8 days? The Friday before, I get a call that afternoon. Hey, the White House now wants to be involved. They want all the dignitaries to show up. So they expect an unbelievable turnout attendance-wise. Everybody's going to be there. They want to move it right next door. So next to the arena in this little sports area district, entertainment district, there's an arena, and then obviously the Cardinal Stadium is right next door. So I got the call the Friday before that, hey, we're going to move it to the stadium. Obviously, panic sets in. Going from an arena to a stadium is a big deal. Yeah. So my first question was, how soon can I get to the stadium, talk to the team on site, do what I need to do. And then that weekend, Myself and my production team were on a 9-hour Zoom call on Saturday, about 11-hour Zoom call on Sunday, and then we hit the ground running on Monday morning at 7 a.m. We went directly to the stadium, met with the stadium team, and I moved my whole staff and office supplies, everything that I have here, to a room in the stadium and started working on it on the ground. So that was Monday. The memorial was Sunday afternoon.
So hang on, I want to make sure we have this exactly right.
Yeah.
You get that call on Friday that you've got, what is that, 9 days?
9 days.
To switch
I mean,
venues.
technically, we started load-in on Wednesday, so technically 5 days before load-in.
All right, let me see if I can thread this needle. Brad, I will say, I saw that same conspiracy. Maybe it wasn't the same person, but that same conspiracy.
There's a few.
And I thought, to the uninformed person, I understand how this is kind of incredible and mind-boggling to pull off this fest.
Yeah.
I was like, but I know these guys. In fact, I think most of y'all had been on our podcast already. And so I was like, well, if you have the absolute best people in production all at the same event, it's going to work. But then when you said, oh, we'd been at this venue before, I was like, oh, okay, so now it makes even more sense. You had the best team and you were familiar with the venue. But now you tell me you get this curveball thrown and you don't even, now you're in a different venue. I'm blown away all over again.
Here's where the God moments start. I mean, there's puzzle pieces. I've had this conversation many times. If you look at the whole puzzle of the whole process, like there's definitely these God puzzle pieces that go together that I didn't make sense in the moment. But once you look at them, I mean, we'll talk about crew that, to get all those crew together in 5 days was unbelievable, that nobody had other gigs. We'll talk about the worship band, but I thank God 10 years almost to the date. So 10 years ago, had went into Cardinal Stadium when I was on staff at CCV. And I think we touched on this at my last podcast episode, and produced an Easter service in that exact same space, in that same room, same everything, same end zone. So in 2016, I was able to take CCV production and I led that whole event to go in there. So when I got the call for this one, I was like, well, I mean, thankfully I've been in this space. I know the space pretty well. Obviously that was 10 years ago. I'm sure a lot has changed, but my very first phone call to the venue, I pick up the phone and the guy's name's Shashank. He's essentially their event coordinator on the Cardinals stadium side. Same exact dude that I worked with 10 years ago to produce that event, was still on staff. He was still my contact. So there was some dots. I mean, I didn't know it at this moment, but obviously I believe that God set me up in that moment 10 years ago to make this moment successful. So I had a little bit of familiarity. I was going back, me personally, nobody else had worked in that space before, but me personally, I had worked in that space 10 years ago. So yeah, kind of a cool God moment for me to get back in that space and produce this memorial, and that I got to for CCV with that Easter service for 55,000 people back in 2016.
That is wild.
Yeah. So you got that clarified? I want to make sure you got your moment to.
I mean, I still have some other timeline questions, but
Totally.
I mean, we can sprinkle them throughout.
Great. So now I have this vision, and I'm just imagining, you're Batman, you throw out the bat signal, and then the Justice League assembles.
Yeah, literally.
We got Daniel Cannell, you got Corey Edwards.
Shep is there.
Yeah, Shep.
Jeremy Bagwell, I think, was there.
Yeah.
Like, what, were you like, okay, get the best people on the phone, get them on now, or did you know exactly who you were going to call to pull this thing off?
I mean, we started calling people Friday. Once I got that call that we were moving to the stadium, thankfully we had, I would say, 50% of them locked in for the smaller event at the arena. So they were, most of them were previously locked in. Once we jumped up to this level, we obviously had to bring in broadcast trucks. We got Eddie from Concepts Pixels with broadcast trucks. We had to, we were probably 50% there with crew, but we had to add that other 50%. So we just started calling all of our contacts. I mean, over the next 5 days that superseded that, I probably used my network. I've been in the industry for 26 years. I probably called everybody I've ever worked with in any capacity over the last 26 years to ask, hey, I need this favor, I need this. But all those dudes, and again, one of these puzzle pieces, like all those guys that we were describing, and there's the list is super long from the church production side, from the corporate production side, all those men and women, dudes that we know, that we love, were all either available, which is crazy with 7 days notice, or they were on another gig that they were able to get out of to get back onto our gig. And they all jumped in. They all jumped in 2 feet in. So I mean, it was amazing. Again, these puzzle pieces. And then we started the process of, okay, what's next? Turning Point is obviously going through a whole process of grieving what's happened that just happened a week prior. So they're as engaged as they can be, but a lot of it was like, hey, Brad, we need you to really, do your best to make this amazing. So of course I'm talking to all these guys we've talked about, like Erica really wants a worship element as a part of this. Obviously we're going to have a political element. We need to handle the worship side of it while they handle the political side of it. So myself, my team, Eddie, we started running with the worship stuff. Again, we got everybody calls them the Avengers of Worship out there that day. None of them were booked. It was a Sunday morning. None of them were on tour. None of them were booked at a church that morning. They were all available. And the moment we made the call, they said yes. Like, there's just so many little puzzle pieces, like I keep describing, that like, it doesn't make sense. We're 7 days out. Yeah. Like, how are all these people, the best in the business, the best in worship, the best in production, the broadcast trucks, the stadium, like it's all available for me to grab, pull in, and start running with. Yeah. Like, that's unheard of.
Again, I'm going to just thread the needle here to be nice to the public. If I didn't personally know Brad, I don't know that I could believe this. Like, that is insane that everyone's schedule was open. Like, that is so wild.
Yep.
Isn't it?
And so, Brad, give us a quick rundown of, you got the Justice League on the production side, and you got the Avengers on the worship. Give us I saw who posted online that was there, but like, who are some of those key people that got involved on both sides?
Yeah, obviously on the worship side, you've got the Brandon Lake, Phil Wickham, Carrie, and Cody, Tiffany, and Chris Tomlin. So I mean, yeah, you're there. You're, like you said, the Avengers of Worship. All of them came in. They decided Chris Tomlin did a little set by himself, which was amazing because he had one of Charlie's favorite songs was "How Great Is Our God," so that kind of wanted to be separate based off what Erica wanted. The other 5 decided they wanted to show unity and do their worship set together, which obviously there's so many moments from that worship set that morning that was just unbelievable. And then on the production side, I mean, anybody, I'm sure all the guys you've had on the podcast, from Dylan, Eddie, Daniel Cannell,
Chef
the list.
Bagwell.
Jeff, Bagwell, Corey Edwards. I mean, I've heard so many compliments on the audio mix for the broadcast. Obviously, that's Corey. He's the best in the business at that. All of our crew that we use on other gigs that people don't know in the church world, but they're still believers or non-believers, they were all available. I mean, the list is endless. I did a full credits run on the Mosaic Pro Events channel that showed everybody's role and who was there. So if you want to go check it out on our Instagram, it's pretty amazing, the stacked crew we had on that event. I think there was, total technicians, so actually like high-end technicians operating equipment, I think I was at 86, 87. And then obviously for load in, load out, we got up to almost 250 people over those 4 days for load in, load out.
Dang.
Yeah. Do you want to link that in our show notes?
We can. Brad, I want to ask you a human question here. I'm imagining panic and grief are 2 present things throughout this whole event for you. Like, how are you, and maybe not, don't let me assume that, but like, how are you handling the pressure of pulling this whole thing off while like one of your friends died? I don't want that to get lost here. I mean, that is crazy to operate at a high level. Like, I couldn't podcast the day after Toby died. I do genuinely love Toby. Like, how did you
clip that, post that on social, boost it.
Anna, delete that. But I mean, how did you handle the pressure and the grief all at the same time?
I think you just have to departmentalize it. I mean, I think I've always been really well just in business and personal, of separating business from personal. I mean, my wife works directly for me here at Mosaic Pro Events, so it's a little harder for her, but for me, we have these conversations all the time because I'll yell at her on a show because she's not doing something backstage, or I'll get on her about something, and then people are like, oh man, they're going to have a rough night, when they go back home. But we've learned to separate those things. So I've always been able to, kind of separate those 2 things. And it was twofold. One, I've always been able to separate those well and like be able to manage the work as opposed to the personal. But 2, when you get the call like that, and it is a friend and it's high profile and it's something that hits so close to home, I think I went even further in the direction of, I'm going to do everything I know, every skill God's given me, every talent I have, every network I own. I'm going to do everything I can to honor this person who I considered a friend and I considered part of our life and part of our family. So I think even more so, as opposed to just separating the two, I kicked it into 110%. We're gonna work our butts off to honor this dude and his widow in the highest possible caliber that we know how to. And then once it's over, we'll take our moment to kind of rest and grieve. And that's kind of what we did. We all kind of, you get to that moment. I had a moment during the memorial. I mean, I can't think of a production event that I've produced where I've actually physically crying in front of house, but there's pictures of, everybody on our crew. There was a few moments there that if you were watching the memorial with where they raised the banners up and the strings are playing, which none of it was rehearsed, which also is a conspiracy that all that was rehearsed and planned ahead of time. None of it was. It was just the Holy Spirit. If you were in the room, even if you were watching on TV, I'm sure you felt it, and we felt it even heavier in the room. And obviously knowing the family, and it was waterworks for all of us, man. It was such an honor to be a part of and such an honor to produce, but it was hard. It was hard once we got into that moment in the Memorial Day. I think we were able to put our heads down leading up to it, or let's get this done and we have a lot of work to do. But that day of, when that, especially for us believers that, worship is our thing. Once that worship started and we could feel the Holy Spirit move in that place and know that it was bigger than us, it hit pretty heavy in that moment. And then we kind of had to focus back in, but it was good to have that moment. At least everybody kind of had a human moment there for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Talk to us about the actual workload on those 9 days. Are you working 16 hours a day, sleeping at the office? What were those days like? Like
I said, 2 very, very long Zoom calls on Saturday and Sunday with our production team, just getting all the logistics. Obviously, we've got to start lighting plots, rigging plots, audio plots. When you go into a stadium like that, obviously in this stadium, there's 0 rigging capacity. They won't let you rig anything. They've only done rigging once, and that's when Super Bowl halftime show was there. So we've got to bring in a full stage unit. So we brought in G2 staging, which did an amazing job. So we've got to coordinate that. We've got to look at their timelines, which takes 2 days to get that staging in. We've got to look at our AVL timeline to get all that in. So like I said, we physically moved our office over there on Monday. They had a really great room for us to kind of live and breathe in. And we were either in that room or we were on the stadium floor for, I don't think we did less than 18-hour days on site. And then once we got closer, we were there for 20. A couple of our production guys bought air mattresses, slept in that office. We did not go home. We went home to shower, maybe take a nap. I think the most sleep I got that week was probably 4 hours one night. But that was the most. We were living, breathing in that room or in that office 24/7 for 7 straight days.
Yeah. And when did the Justice League of production leaders start flying in and getting set up?
So based off that stage, like I said, which obviously sets everything back. So we got in there on Monday morning. We started living and breathing, doing pre-pro on Monday morning, besides what we did on the weekends. Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. is when G2 showed up with that stage unit, full cranes, everything came in, rolled up on the concrete. So that took 2 days just to build the actual physical stage unit. So that was Wednesday, Thursday. All of our crew flew in town on Thursday. We hit the ground running at 5 a.m. They flew in on Wednesday. We hit the ground running 5 a.m. Friday morning. We gathered up and prayed. I sent everybody out to the floor. So we had Friday, which was a 23-hour day. Everybody walked away for 2 or 3 hours. And then we came back Friday, again, worked till I think 2 or 3 in the morning on Friday. Then we were back in at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning to produce a memorial. Doors are at 7:30. So it was as fast and as hard work and you can't explain it. It was everything we do in our industry times 10 with half the schedule. You can't describe what went into that week. And like I keep saying, it wouldn't have been possible. Even though we had the Avengers and whatever you want to call it, without God, there's no chance it would have happened like it did.
And I think there's kind of this, unfair assumption that church production guys aren't at the same level as touring guys, as secular guys that are putting on the Super Bowl halftime show. And I think we can clearly say, no, the things that production leaders are doing inside the church are of the exact same level. You're talking about producing an Easter service for 55,000 people at the same stadium that then how many people showed up? 110,000 10,000 worth.
We had 65,000 seats in the room, and that arena that I mentioned earlier, we ended up buying the arena out, and we used that as our overflow room, and it had 10 to 12,000 in the overflow room watching it on their jumbotrons. So physical people on site. Then we heard there's even more outside, kind of just hanging out and watching. So we had close to 80,000 or so on site physically watching a screen or in our room watching our service, and then we've heard the numbers up to 110 million watching online or some kind of broadcast of some sort.
Yeah,
this is the equivalency of waking up a production leader in the dead of night in June and saying Christmas is actually in 9 days.
9 days,
and it will be an international event. Go.
Yeah. Because if you compare it to the Super Bowl halftime show, how long do they prepare for that?
It's a year. There's a documentary I watched a while ago that goes, they usually, obviously they start to dial it in once they announce the act. So if you look at like the Super Bowl, but Bad Bunny was just announced, like a month ago. So they'll start dialing it in a month ago, but we're in, that would have been September and it's not till February. So I would say the primary focus is at least 6 to 8 months. But the moment it ends, last Super Bowl, they're starting to plan what they're going to do for the next one. They know where they're going to go. They know how they're going to go. That team is all the same. So I would say they get in the weeds with 6 months out, but I think they have a year to really plan their ideas and what they're going to do.
Yeah. So to be clear, not 9 days.
Definitely not 9 days. Nope, definitely not.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, church production leaders are world-class, and most world-class production leaders got their start in church.
100%. If you look at, like I said, 85 technicians, so highly skilled men or women that I used on this event, I would say of those 85, man, I would go as high as probably 70 are former or current church production people. Like literally grew up, worked in, still work at some form of church production. Like that's where they got their skill set, their feet wet. Even though some of them have left and are in the corporate world now, they've all those 70, I would say it's at least 70 grew up in church production doing what we did.
So in those 9 days, did you have any production moments where it was like, oh, this might be an unsolvable problem, or this might be like a crisis? Like I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Like in those 9 days of prep, what was the biggest, oh, this might be really hard or impossible moments?
Those are constant, you know what I mean? When you're going into 9 days with something like this, I think, the secret to my success, I just had this conversation recently, is I'm not afraid to call on experts that are more experienced than I am, or have expertise or strengths in my weaknesses. So a lot of those moments were answered by somebody obviously outside of me. When I get to, hey, we're not going to be able to do this internally. Turning Point, most of their events, their live stream that goes to their Turning Point channels, or even sometimes Fox News, is all done. They have a team. They have a Turning Point production team that does their live stream stuff. We do all the live events, but they handle like the broadcast side of things. Obviously, we're getting to a point with, say, 6 days left in this where we're looking at numbers and how much traction we're going to get. Like we've got to pivot all of that to a broadcast truck situation, because we could have, at that point, we thought maybe 20 million people watching. But, that's when I reach into Eddie at Concept Pixels, like, hey, man, obviously this is your expertise. This is what you do. He does it for Mr. Beast. He does it for Beyonce, you name it. So he pivots and he starts working on that. Or if it's, hey, we've got to figure out where this G2 staging is going to go. That's not something I rent often. I've never worked with G2 staging. I go into ballroom spaces. I go into convention centers. The last time I was in a stadium was 10 years ago. But, so, hey, who do we know that knows about staging? We've got the lead rigger for Rhino Staging is a big rigging company. He does a ton of stadium events. He does a ton of arena events. His name is Victor. He's amazing, critical to our team. Hey, Victor, we need you to run with this. Can you contact G2 Staging? Or who do you use? And he's like, I use G2 Staging. So I'm going to bring that in. So it's a lot of these roads that I don't have expertise in, even though I've been in it and doing it at a high caliber for so long. There's still these elements that I need to hand this off. And like even with 7 days, I can't do everything, or my team can't can't do everything. So you've got to find the experts in the fields and be like, okay, I need you to get this. I need you to get that. So there's constant red flags and there's constant moments where like, oh gosh, what are we going to do? And then I'm like, okay, I got this guy, or I got this guy, and I talk about it a lot of time, even in church production, like your network in this industry, even though it's so big, it's so small, and your network is so critical. If I hadn't worked on 26 years of network and have all these great friends in the industry from church to corporate, there's no way I could have pulled it off. Like I said, I needed to call every person I know from the network, use their skill set, use their strengths, allow them to run with it, and then come back and let's all meet in the middle and make this thing amazing. And that's clearly what happened for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk gear for a moment. So obviously it took a ton of gear to pull this thing off. Is this all gear that Mosaic owns? Did you call in different production companies? And then give us a quick rundown of like the highlights. What was like your front of house or broadcast mixer, PA, lighting console?
We don't own any. Mosaic owns zero gear. That wasn't my passion when I left ministry. My passion was to design, produce events. So we don't own any of the equipment. I love supporting other small businesses that have equipment and big businesses that have the equipment. So our infrastructure is built on designing and producing. So we design it, we produce it, and then we bring in all the experts or the people that have the gear. So, I mean, what was really cool about this, if you're in this industry, most people know us, they know me, and they know because Turning Point events have become a thing and you see them all over the place on social media. Everybody knew or assumed we were going to produce this memorial. So once the word got out that it was happening, I started to get people from all over the country, production company owners that I knew, production company owners I didn't know. Hey man, how can we help? How can we offer our services? Let us know what gear you need. I mean, obviously Daniel Cannell, we talked about DC Pro, handles all the lighting, but then Nick from IPS, who's a great friend of mine, he called me and he's like, hey, how can we help? Can we donate some lighting to support you guys? SLP out of Vegas is where we use all of our video, but then we have Concept Pixels there doing broadcasts and they're lending hands to SLP. We've got Pro M, which is a staging company here in Phoenix. They're coming out and doing our risers for cameras, and they're doing everything from bathrooms and fencing outside to what we're doing inside. I mean, so it was such a joint effort of us steering the ship with this design and producing, but all these other elements, again, going back to that puzzle piece thing, all these other elements and just amazing people that reached out. Hey man, how can I help? What can I do? Mike Reynolds donated a bunch of mics. Clearwing did a ton of audio for us. I mean, you name it. Everybody stepped up. Most of them did it at cost, which was amazing. Nobody really saw this thing as, this is going to be cool to put our name on. This is a cool PR move. It was like, man, we see what you're doing. This time has impacted us in some form or fashion. How do we step up next to you, let you run with it, but we're going to be here to support you? And that was literally, my inbox was 100 emails a day from people I did know and people I didn't know. We know you're doing this. We know it's a daunting task. How can we support you? Yeah. Like, it was unbelievable.
It's like I'm imagining this kind of animation graphic where like these originated dots like light up and then they start coming into Phoenix,
right?
And you just see it all descending into one place. Like such
literally the only way to describe it. Absolutely.
Can you give us a rundown of, some of the highlights of gear? Like what was your PA? What was your console?
I mean, you name it. PA was full of acoustics. Everything we did LED was all Absinthe 2.6 mil. I mean, you name a lighting fixture, we had it out there. I mean, it was the best of the best. The broadcast trucks ran everything from the iMag feeds to what you saw on TV. I think we got up to, we were at 26 cameras total. 2 jibs, 2 steady cams, full obviously monitor engineer, all Yamaha consoles for all of our stuff, all Digico consoles for all the band stuff. We should probably put out a full gear list. I think that'd be fun for some people to see, but you name it, if it's high end and something you would use on a Taylor Swift concert or whatever other concert that's out there touring right now, we have this exact same equipment on this guy.
Yeah. Blake, you suddenly perked up when he said Taylor Swift, right?
I mean, that's a pretty big concert that I never got a ticket to.
Nope, you sure didn't. I took my wife instead.
Didn't take your work wife.
No. Brad, obviously when the White House calls and says we're going to be involved, security goes through the roof. Like, what does that difference make as far as, you guys are producing an event, now all of a sudden Secret Service is everywhere?
Yep. So this is, again, I'm going to keep going back to these puzzle pieces. So go back to 10 years. As far as I talked to Shashank, the only special event of this size that has been in the stadium, so I'm talking non-Taylor Swift, non-Metallica, non-concert, I'm the only person that has produced an event in the Cardinal Stadium for a private organization at this scale. I'm also the only person that has produced an event in the Cardinal Stadium that had both produced an event in this space and done stuff for the current president. So I have these two skill sets that met in the middle right here, where I know how to produce now in this space. And I've done, for the current president, I've done, I think, probably 17 events between him and Turning Point that include him. So I know what to look for from both perspectives at this point. I know how to work with Secret Service. Our team knows how to work with Secret Service. But this one was a whole different level of Secret Service, different level of White House. Again, bringing in experts that know more than I do. Through all those White House events and everything that we've done for POTUS, if you look at any event that he's done up until he's in office, and even his outside events, if they're not White House related, if you see him before he goes on stage, there's one guy next to him. His name is Justin. Justin is essentially the event producer for all things POTUS, non-White House related. White House kind of has her own team. Justin did all the campaign stuff for POTUS. He's always right there. He's always the guy that kind of sends about on stage. We've formed a friendship. He lives in DC. He still does events for POTUS. I called him that first weekend and I was like, hey, Justin, this thing is going to be massive. I'm hearing POTUS is coming. I'm hearing the whole cabinet is coming. Obviously, Secret Service is going to be there. This is your expertise. Is there any chance you're available to come support me and jump on my team for this event? And he's like, man, let me look at my calendar. I have nothing that weekend. Highly unusual. There's nothing happening. Let me know when you need me in Phoenix. He showed up Tuesday in Phoenix. He was a part of every Secret Service meeting I had. He was part of every White House debriefing meeting I had, which was twice a day. And the dude, he when he talks, everybody listens. It's almost like he speaks on behalf of POTUS because he's been around all these events for so long. So, I'll give an example. My first conversation when Secret Service is doing an event like this, they have to do sweeps. So we'll be allowed in to do our full setup. Once we're done, they come in, we have to physically leave the room. We have to leave all of our laptops, our briefcases, our backpacks, our tools. We have to level out every single case. So every road case has to be single level so they can open it up and look inside of it and have the dog sweep it, which takes up a lot of space. So they have to come in and do sweeps. My first conversation with Secret Service lead is they needed to be in at 6 p.m. on Saturday night, and they weren't going to give me the room back till 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Obviously, panic sets in, like, holy moly, that's 12 hours. There's no way I'm going to be ready by 6 p.m. on Saturday night. I wasn't even planning on getting the worship bands there till 9 p.m. to start rehearsals because I need as much time as possible to get ready. So I was like, oh, shoot, this is not going to work. So I tell Justin, who's now on site, hey, man, this isn't good. He's like, all right, cool, give me 20 minutes. Justin walks away. He meets with Secret Service. He comes back, and he's like, how about from 12 to 3 a.m. they're in there doing sweeps? Awesome. So we left at 12. We got back at 3 a.m. Wow. These puzzle pieces, like Justin being available. This dude's never available for anything. He's never worked directly for me. We've always worked hand in hand. He's always been on the POTUS side. So he was a lifesaver. You couldn't do this without all these puzzle pieces to make it such a success that it was. And obviously the gospel outreach that happened because of it. So super thankful that everybody was a part of that. And he was a critical part. But I think I heard at one point there was, I think the day of, almost 700 Secret Service members on site. It was the only time that the cabinet, besides cabinet White House meetings that happened at the White House, it was the only time that they'd all been in the same place at the same time, in the room, in the front section. It was everybody, obviously our family and friends, leading up to it are a little nervous, like, oh, is it going to be safe? Yeah. In my opinion, we were in the safest building in the world for those 6 hours. Like, it couldn't have been more safe than it was.
It's like you'd literally need a missile from outer space to reach
100%.
Yeah. Like
absolutely you would. Yeah. You couldn't, it was by far the safest room in the world for that 6 hour chunk.
Yeah. And I want to highlight something that you've talked over and over again about, and something that I am a huge champion of, just building your network, knowing who to call, having people in your phone, reliable contacts. I love the quote, and I don't know who said it, but essentially the idea you can accomplish amazing things if you don't care who gets the credit. Like, you don't want to own gear. You don't need to be the best at every individual thing. Like, you just happen to be the guy they called to then gather the amazing people to
100%.
That was the only way it was going to happen. Yeah, I was just thinking of, like, I love doing that with our team at Church Gear. Like, we're talking about, we're going on our retreat soon, and we said, well, we need to figure out internet, and maybe we could get Starlink. And while we're talking about it, I text my buddy, and then I was like, okay, I got one, because my friend had one and I knew it, and he was like, sure, let's borrow it.
Toby, I think that was almost as hard as what Brad had to do.
Almost. It was close.
And just to clarify, just to make it absolutely certain, like, this event, the buck stops with you, Brad. Like, you were the guy. You are the main producer of this event.
I was. Yeah, executive producer. And I would say even more so on this event. Again, super honored to do it. But even more so because I'm interacting with the stadium, I'm interacting with White House, I'm interacting with Secret Service. And because, again, Turning Point is amazing. Turning Point family, the events team is absolutely amazing, but they're also grieving in this process. So I've tried to even step up even more than I would and handle things on their behalf than I would generally for other events. So yeah, at the end of the day, the actual program, what happened, how it looked like, the design, everything funneled at the end of the day, it funneled all down to me, which is, again, such an honor, but obviously you can feel the stress level go through the roof for that for, 7 days.
So the actual event's happening. There's 100-ish thousand people gathered both in the stadium and in the arena. You said it's being watched by 110 million people around the world?
That's what the numbers, they ran the numbers. 110 at our peak, we were at 110 million broadcast from the stadium out. I mean, it was on every channel possible. I mean, the broadcast channels were picking it up. Obviously the YouTubes were all picking it up. It was, you couldn't turn on anything without seeing it. I'm sure you guys obviously watched it, but yeah, you couldn't turn anywhere without seeing the thing in full or clips from it. It was correct. And I've gotten so many calls after of people watching it. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So the 9 days leading up, you were in like managing chaos mode, trying to get this thing ready. At what point are you at the actual event and start to realize like the kingdom aspect that is happening, the impact around the world, the gospel being shared? And like, at what point do the chills set in of like, this is a moment in history that God allowed me to be a part of?
I don't think any of that realistically hit until I saw afterwards. Again, your head is down and I'm, responsible for so many people and so many moments. Obviously, when you get the yeses from the Brandon Lakes and the Kerry Job and all that, and Chris Tomlin, something good is going to happen. It's going to be powerful that morning. But I don't think I wrapped my head around, I saw it on Twitter this morning. It was the largest church service in human history, if you put the numbers together, or the biggest gospel presentation in human history, or, whatever you want to call it. I don't think I wrapped my head around that until I walked away and started seeing, the buzz about that the next day, and then seeing all the post about the impact it had on people, the phone calls that I've gotten of it, the gospel, the ministry moment. There was obviously that moment if you watch it back, there's that critical moment during worship where Brandon Lake is leading. And we were kind of at the end of what I had timed out for worship. Obviously, everything's timed because we have a program to still get to. And we were kind of towards the end of that worship allotment time. And you can even see it if there's a Steadicam shot. You can see my clock in the DSM. We were at that moment, and they had run that one last song, and it was kind of just almost a completely silent moment. And the MD, who, if you go to his Instagram, the MD for the band, that was a shared band, he was playing keys. Obviously, we had the string section there. He was playing keys, and he talks about on Instagram where in that moment of silence, God just told him to play like you did when you were a kid. Like, just be super authentic and just play it like where you don't have an agenda. You're just playing as a kid and have fun with it and worship in it. So he just started to play some pads. Strings come in. None of this rehearsed, none of it planned. Again, it just was a silent moment that led to this moment. Strings come in. There's this is a Shep and Eddie thing. Intentional. Shep had the camera up on the downstage edge. Eddie told him to start pushing in towards the Charlie Kirk banner that was in the back of the room. He thankfully had a long enough lens, so he just does this really slow push while the strings are playing to this Charlie Kirk banner that we'd hung, this 50 by 50 banner. And you can even see the difference between, if you're watching the broadcast, you see them cut to that feed. And then Eddie, actually, if you talk to Eddie, he screams at Shane, who's cutting our M-Room feed to the iMag screens. He screams at Shane, take this feed, because he can just feel that it's going to be good. So you can actually, if you're watching the broadcast, you watch the shot, and then about 10 seconds later, you feel the crowd kind of raise and erupt. That's when I went to it on iMag. That's when Shane cut to it on iMag. And he does this slow push for, I haven't counted it, it's probably 90 seconds. While the strings are playing, and just the in-room sensation and the moment to honor Charlie and remember Charlie and the Holy Spirit just taking those 3 hours of worship we just had, like it kind of all culminated in that one moment. And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's when I started to cry. That's when our backstage team, I mean, you name it. If you were in the room, you were crying at that moment. He pushed in on that, and then everybody, the whole bottom floor had these posters, these Charlie Kirk posters that they started to raise. And this whole moment, I don't know how long it lasted, maybe 3 minutes, I've been in ministry my whole life. My grandparents were pastors. Obviously, I was in full-time ministry for 9 years. I don't think, and I've heard, if you look at Chris Tomlin's Instagram, if you look at Brandon Lakes, they all talk about this moment. I don't think we've ever felt that kind of like a worshipful Holy Spirit God moment that we did in those 3 minutes. Like it was, you can't describe when 70,000 people are just worshiping, hands raised, all, obviously we were there for Charlie, to remember Charlie, but at that moment in those 3 minutes, it was about Jesus, and for, 70,000 people to all look towards the heavens and worship Jesus in that one moment together while just strings are playing was, man, you can't describe it. I mean, if you watch back those moments on TV, it's just as good. I just watched it on YouTube 4 days ago. It's just as good, but to be in the room and feel that, I mean, I'm sure you've both been in powerful worship services or those worship moments, but to be in it and kind of feel it, and you just can't describe it. Like it'll change you for sure.
I remember, I love the Babylon Bee. They posted something, I'm going to misquote it slightly, but they posted a picture from Charlie Kirk's memorial and then a quote from Satan, "I've made a huge mistake."
Yeah, right. I saw that. Yeah.
Nobody had any idea you said, the most viewed worship service in the history of the world.
There's no way. That definitely was not the plan. The plan was to honor Charlie's widow, Erica. She wanted to make sure that it was both, and we even got, this is another conspiracy with the sparks and everything. Like everything was driven based off of what Erica wanted to honor Charlie. Charlie obviously was a huge believer. He was heavy into politics, but he was just as talented and invested in his belief in Christ and what he does in that side of the world. And she wanted the whole service to honor him. So she obviously wanted the worship aspect of that. And then she wanted the political aspect of that. And she even wanted the sparks. Those were her idea, not mine, because she wanted it to feel like an event that Charlie would love. The Turning Point events, we have sparks at all of them. It's high production. It's high lighting. It's flashy. She wanted it to feel like something that would honor him and he would love. And then she also wanted the quiet, worshipful moments with the Chris Tomlins and the Brandon Lakes to really honor that side of him and his belief system. So to wrap all that into one, and even after the worship set, to hear these dignitaries speak the name of Jesus and say they were changed in those moments. And you can't describe the momentum and how God used that day to impact the lives, not only in the room, but the 110 million that have watched. And there's so many stories of people that have watched and text me, and man, I wasn't even following Christ, and I watched it and I couldn't turn the channel. I was just so in it, and people that weren't believers at all, and they're like, man, I don't know what it was, but I couldn't change the channel. I just had to watch. I had to listen, and I went to church the next week. I think I've seen church attendance is up 15% since the assassination and memorial. So I think it was, we were there to remember Charlie, but God used it for such a bigger plan and purpose than we would even have known or understood until that moment.
And I hope that, you look back and you can think to yourself, like, I don't regret, like, obviously you had 9 days to pull it off, but I hope you can look back and say, like, I gave my best, my team
100%.
gave their best. Everybody gave their best. And, it was an excellent reflection, obviously honoring Charlie's life, but also of a gospel presentation that didn't feel like it was shoddily thrown together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've said that numerous times. I think, and that's one thing I loved about Charlie, and I've posted about him since then. Like, Charlie obviously has these super high expectations of what he wanted his events to look like. So not only did I have to always bring my best, but he also allowed us to be our best. He always allowed me to design at my best. He allowed me to come up with creative ideas at my best. So everybody in that room, I mean, there's nobody I can think of from top to bottom that didn't fully commit, were fully engaged, didn't complain about the hours, didn't complain about the lack of sleep, and really everybody was firing on every single cylinder they had with little sleep, high stress, but they all gave their all to what we were doing that week. And I mean, to walk away, I think I sent a text in our WhatsApp during the memorial, like, I know I've asked a lot of you guys this week. This is a lot of pressure. This is a lot of expectation, but all of that was to get us to this moment where we could look out at that crowd, especially those 3 minutes, and just think to ourselves, man, this is, even though we haven't had any sleep, we haven't seen our families for 7 days, what an amazing opportunity and honor to be a part of, and that we can all walk away knowing that we were a part of this. I mean, yeah, you can't describe it. Like, it'll be a bond for those 75, 80 people. It'll be a bond for us for the rest of our lives, that we get to look back at our career and we were a part of that. Like, there's nothing I don't think that I could do that'll even come close to that day and that moment that I'll be able to more proud of the people that were around us, that we all came together and gave our all to make that happen.
And Blake can certainly confirm this, but I mean, there's so much ignorance around production, especially when it comes to the church. And Blake was one of the comments one time, you don't even need, if you have a,
Brad, someone was like, so much money gets spent on church production in such a way. It's like, you don't even need electricity to do this if you just know how to build the room right.
And so, I'm just thinking, what you guys did to broadcast a gospel presentation to 110 million people, and you did it with absolute excellence and a world-class level of production and technology. Like, what would you say to that ignorance? Like, if you're going to share the gospel, do it with excellence.
I mean, I think this is the key point. I mean, when I was in ministry, and even since I left ministry, why I do podcasts like this, even though I'm not in ministry, like, it's all about, I've always been a huge cheerleader and ambassador for excellence in church production. And if you look at the stories that I've seen post this event, not only in the room, but people that watched it on TV, all the feedback was that the production was so well executed, so well done, that it wasn't a distraction at all. So to be able to, not only to produce that, it's amazing to be able to do that with 7 days notice, but to be able to do it in that moment, that none of the focus, the production was there to support the gospel message. If you look at anything we did, it was to support what we were doing, how we were honoring him, but we did it at such a high caliber and such an excellence factor that it almost became invisible, and what the message was stuck out in front. Like, there was zero distractions. You didn't, even though you saw the fancy LED, you saw the fancy lighting, like, what drew you in was the moments, and the production just supported that. And I think because we have the best of the best on site, or even I was told a story, it was a friend of ours, we were at dinner the other night, and they said their family reached out to them and talked to them about watching it. They turned it on because he was actually the guitar player for the opening worship band. A couple of great friends of mine, Andy Frank and TJ, I brought them in. They're a local worship band that he used to be at CCV with me. So his family was watching, non-believers back east, aren't really involved. They actually watched just to see TJ play guitar. And they told TJ, man, we ended up watching all 7 hours. And it was because we started watching during your worship set, and it sounded so good on our TV and our sound system that we couldn't turn it off. Like, we were like, oh my gosh, this sounds so good. So for them, it wasn't even about, at that point, it wasn't about watching him play guitar. It wasn't about what we're going to watch with POTUS coming on stage, or, whatever it is. They loved how good it sounded. And it goes back to my original thought, like, excellence in church production and anything you're doing gospel. If they would have turned it on in that moment, that family, they probably would have stayed around to watch. If audio was bad, they would have stayed around to watch TJ play guitar. Mm-hmm. The moment TJ was done playing guitar, they're going to turn the channel. Yep. It's the same thing with church. You know, like the moment you show up, if the audio quality is poor, lighting quality is poor, video quality is poor, are you going to come back? Yeah, maybe. If those are all done at an excellent factor and you don't even notice they exist and they're there to support the gospel message, like how much more open are those people to walk in? So those people ended up watching the whole thing. They watched all 7 hours because the audio was so good. Corey Edwards, shout out to you. And they were totally open to the gospel presentation because of that production thing. They didn't know why. They just thought to themselves, man, it sounds so good. I just want to listen to more. Then they end up hearing Brandon Lake. Then they end up hearing Erica's story. Like it wasn't about, seeing something flashy. It wasn't about what we were doing on a high production standpoint. It was, man, this is so excellent. I can't turn away from it. And then God's able to open the door for them to hear the gospel presentation. Like it's the exact same thing on a Sunday morning, in my opinion. If people can walk in and production is done well, executed well, and it's excellent, it can be such a catalyst to people kind of taking their shields down and listening to the gospel presentation, which is the whole purpose of what we're doing anyway. So I'm always a cheerleader for excellence in church production, or obviously in production that we do, for that same reason.
Amen, Blake.
Amen.
Amen.
Excellence in church production has been a motif of the podcast recently, and I can't think of a better example than hundreds of millions of people hearing the gospel, because all the people working this event, so many of them had done excellence in church production leading up to it.
Yeah.
100%.
Brad, speaking of Satan making a huge mistake, have you seen, I think Charlie, God's not going to let any moment go to waste. He's going to use it for his glory. And I think there is a movement happening that, Charlie's death helped continue to spur on. Like, have you seen new opportunities start to pop up, new things happening in, production and Turning Point that you're like, wow, this is just going to continue growing? Like, are there new events coming across your plate?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, I've never been busier in my life with emails and interviews and you name it. And it's all centered around what God did that day. If I'm on I did a local news station here, which obviously most local news is not conservative or Christian. But for me, it was my opportunity to talk about, what God did that day with us and our team. And we've got a bunch of events coming up. They're all ministry minded. People are reaching out to support them. And it's also been really cool. I mean, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on mostly LinkedIn, there's not a lot of, outward gospel presentation. There's not a lot of people that are very vocal about their faith. I'm super vocal about everything, and I get asked. I've actually got some other production company owners like, man, I wish I could be as vocal as you are about your faith in Christ and how you use that within your work, but I would probably lose a bunch of clients. Like for me, I just don't care. Like if they want to fire me because I love Jesus and I'm a Christ follower, then they can fire me. That doesn't bother me. Yeah. So it's been cool to see everybody on LinkedIn send me messages like, man, love how vocal you are. It's made me a little more vocal at work. Love how vocal you are. I'd love to come work with you guys. Clients calling, man, we love that faith is driving everything you guys do. I have this opportunity that I'd love to partner with you on. So even the boldness. I mean, sometimes, especially church guys that come out of the church, maybe they're a little skittish to get bold about where they came from or their reason or where they got their skill set. Like, the fact that I've been able to stay bold throughout this process and use this as a catalyst to use that boldness in these moments has opened so many more doors, so many more relationships, both non-believers and believers, that it's been totally worth it for me. And it's opened up new clientele. If other clients decided they didn't want to work with me based off that, I'm totally fine with that. It's for them to fall to the wayside because it's already opened up new opportunities with Christian organizations, gospel presentations. Obviously, if you're on social media, I'm sure you've seen the buzz around the Turning Point has decided to do a Super Bowl halftime show, which is the alternative to what they're doing on the Super Bowl halftime show. And it's not a political thing. It's not a black and white issue. It's just, we want to provide an alternative Super Bowl halftime show to what could be an inappropriate halftime show. When you're watching the halftime show and you're watching the Super Bowl, with your family and friends, and your kids are in the room and your grandparents are in the room, the last thing you want to see is somebody come up at halftime and do anything inappropriate, whatever you think that is, titled. So we're just going to do an alternative where it's kind of like the Puppy Bowl, where you can change the channel, and as opposed to watching what they're doing on NBC, you can watch what we're doing. So it'll be very worship heavy. There might be even some country acts that come in, but it's just to Turning Point and myself, who's producing that event as well. It's just going to be a family focused, Christian minded, conservative Super Bowl halftime show. So that's going to be an amazing opportunity. I'm looking forward to that. I'm diving in deep into that. I've got a bunch of meetings actually this week to start putting that together, plan that whole thing. It'll be the same caliber, same crew that we've all talked about. They're all locked in for this Super Bowl halftime show. So our goal is to make it, we don't want you to turn the channel and watch something that's less production value. So my goal and everybody around me's goal is you turn the channel and production value even beats what they're doing over there with their show. And it's a reason to watch. And it also has at the end of the day, it has a gospel message that everybody's walking away with.
And are you going to call it Good Bunny?
I don't know what we're going to call it. That's a good question. Maybe we'll just mix some bunnies in some kind.
If you call it Good Bunny, I'd trademark that. Good Bunny.
The fact that me and Toby have kept without jokes for an hour has been really difficult.
It's been really hard. I needed to get one in there.
We want to be respectful of the moment.
You threw in a really bad one at the end to wrap it up.
Well, speaking of wrapping it up, Brad, as we close it out, I want to say an immense thank you for giving your time, because you are insanely busy. Is there anything else we didn't touch on, any last points or lessons or anything you want to say before we wrap up? Just want to make sure we don't miss anything.
No, I don't think so, man. I think it's, for me, it doesn't matter. And I say this all the time. It doesn't matter. I told a story on another podcast I did about Paul in prison. It was a devotional that I read to our staff, and I might have mentioned it last time I was on this podcast. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're producing what should have been essentially a secular event. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, nurse, school teacher, like wherever you are, you have an opportunity to turn something into a gospel message. There's people out there that need to hear about God. There's people out there that just need to hear something good. So don't be afraid in those moments, even if you're handed, if you're outside of the church production and you're in the secular world and you're producing secular corporate events. Obviously, I've proven that you can still do ministry in those events. It doesn't, just because you're working in corporate doesn't mean you're not doing ministry. I say it all the time. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing more full-time ministry now than I did when I was on a church staff. Like, I love church staffs. I encourage production guys to stay on church staffs. So I'm not saying you need to come out to what I'm doing to do ministry, because you're already doing ministry, but don't feel like if you do come out or if you work in the secular world that ministry stops. Full-time ministry does not, in my mind, mean you work at a church. Full-time ministry is everything you're doing. You've committed to Christ, and no matter what environment you're in and how you work or why you work, it's all for his glory, and you can turn anything that you're doing into Christ-centered with a gospel message. And I think that's what that memorial proved. Like, we didn't set out to produce the biggest gospel message in history or the biggest church service. We just decided, man, we're going to put on this memorial and we're going to make sure it glorifies God, and that's where it went. Man,
that's amazing. That is just the perfect ender. Well, Brad, again, I just want to say thank you, because I know you are insanely busy right now.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
This was really helpful and insightful. And like right now, the people who are going to hear this are church techs who are preparing for Christmas, and like they are very stressed. So I think this will be
they're very stressed.
A great encouragement to them.
And let's do a follow-up episode to detail the Good Bunny alternative halftime show.
Oh my gosh, Toby! Only if you call it something better than that.
Better Bunny?
Okay,
you said better.
Thanks for joining us, Brad.
Not so bad. We'll call it the not so bad bunny.
There we go.
Oh, well, thank you, Brad.
Of course. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time as always.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.